Yeah, we're excited to be here on a Tuesday morning. Good morning, everyone.
Exactly. Real quick, show of hands, who is attending their first RESO today? So awesome, very cool. Take the time to interact with people around you. Take the time to learn a little bit about the work groups and the different organizations that are here. I think one of the things that is exciting, I think for us about going first today is, you know, broker advisory is a little bit of a separate beast, right? It's not as technical as some of the other work groups, and it's a safe place. Like, you don't have to have technical jargon, even though our guests absolutely can be in and out of that. But ultimately, a lot of the things that come down the pipe really start out of the brokerage world, right? We've championed things that both led to national policy, or even as simple as just a particular field that we need or something to work through that. So I'm excited to have our guests here today. I know we're going to have a good conversation, and I think with that, I'll let everybody introduce themselves, and we'll jump in from there.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Derek Taylor. I am the Vice President of Technology Consulting at T360.
Hey everyone, I'm Joe Wilhelmy. I run all of our data and analytics operations along with enterprise architecture for Remax.
Good morning, everyone. Nina Dosanjh with Vanguard Properties, and I'm the Chief Technology and Operations Officer. And we're really excited for this conversation in particular, especially with you two. I think every morning brokerages are waking up to headlines about broker margins. Agents, brokerages are expected to provide more for their agents with less. And I think we've come a long way with RESO's common format for brokerages, but I think that there's still a very long way to go. And because there are so many back-end systems that brokerages use, back office, CRMs, recruiting software, there's still a gap in that data and fragmentation. And so today we want to talk a little bit about what RESO could do that would kind of drive that, kind of thought process forward in terms of what brokerages need on the back end. So I kind of want to start off with you, Derek, because you kind of were the person that brought this conversation to the forefront because you are talking to a lot of the brokerages out there right now. So tell us a little bit about those conversations and kind of where you're seeing the clients that you guys are serving talk about this in a way that can really bring us all into the same conversation.
Yeah, thank you. I think the one thing that we've seen in our research is that on average, every broker uses as a baseline about 12.4 different SaaS tools, and that's 12.4 different data silos. Post-COVID, that moved up to well over 20 different tools, and it's moving down again. But every one of those tools, again, has a silo of data, and each of those data silos are not talking to each other very well. So that's creating a lot of inefficiencies for the broker. It's making it almost impossible for them to track deal attribution from beginning to end to determine where the deal came from. It's making it very hard for them to trust the dashboards that they have. It's eroding their margin every day by requiring double entry, triple entry, et cetera. So being able to have those data sets be much more interoperable is important. In addition to all of that, every time they need to change vendors for whatever reason, when they have to rip and replace, they lose years and years of data if they don't have them stored somewhere else separately. And even if they do, it's stored in a different format than the new software product uses. So it's almost impossible for that new company to absorb that information in a meaningful way. So being able to kind of provide a base of a similar language in which all of these things speak will really make it much easier for the brokers to recapture some of that margin, as well as operate in a much more efficient way, trust their dashboards, and actually predict what's going to happen better in the future. And then you had kind of on top of all of that, the ability for AI to ingest that data for them to be able to use and create products that make their business better requires a much more structured data as well in the back end.
So we got AI out of the way in the first 3 minutes. So
within the first 5 minutes, how about that?
Yeah, exactly.
We're not done yet. No. I was going to say, we're not done with the AI.
Yeah, no, we're not.
To that though, Derek teed this up a little bit, but Joe, like where are some of the disconnects on the back end where things don't talk to each other, it creates different pain points for the brokers, like specific types of systems that maybe there's still work to do?
Yeah, and just keeping it focused on the broker is one way to make this conversation short, because obviously the consumers involved in all this as well. We're asking all of our consumers to utilize all these different tools that are front-facing to them to capture all that information that we should be sharing amongst these systems too. But I mean, you think about how the transaction is starting with the initial paperwork, with the agreements, all the way through to what the brokerage needs on the back end to be able to operate, to capture what those commissions are, to be able to capture, when the transactions hit different milestones along the way, and to hopefully not lose any of that fidelity in that data as you're asking that person to re-enter the same thing, or even just try to extract and load into downstream systems so that we can have a true picture of what the actual outcome was of that transaction, but then follow along with it into other systems. So even pre-transaction, think about the listing flow, right? I mean, you're capturing a listing for the first time, you're making the presentation, you're getting the agreement, you're trying to put it on the market. Okay, you put in MLS systems, now what? Right? And so that doesn't just get your home sold, it gets it into all the different portals and gets all the distribution for you out of the gate. But you want to do marketing, you want to do all your different campaigns, and so that's another step that your data has to hop to get into these systems as well. And some of that is pure listing data, but we have a lot of that other operational data that surrounds it that just gets dropped at different points if we don't have tight interconnects today, which are very fragile.
And I do think that's an important piece. I think last year on the stage, we talked a little bit about RESO common format and, this thought process of maybe going outside of what traditionally has been an MLS architecture, right? Like, which again, a lot of things are more downstream, but a lot of the problems and conversations you guys are talking about are really upstream from that MLS data, to use an industry term there, right? But like, where are there opportunities with RESO common format, and where are there still things that you could fill in the gaps at a little bit?
So we're teasing a little bit, we go back to the AI for you. So you might have visited remax.com and talked to Max. And so Max is fluent in RESO common format now and understands how to interact with MLS data, all within our MLS agreement requirements, of course. But it's just the first step, right? And so we know that is the first thing that, in the discovery phase for a consumer, they're interacting with that data. But then again, now what? Right, so they become a lead, they start interacting with an agent, maybe they have started working with that agent now, and how does that data and that conversation flow through systems, into the operational side of the house in a similar fashion?
Well, I think the interesting part of that is really the business intelligence side of that, right? What information do brokerages need back? And I think right now there's a human doing that, right? There's a component of gathering all of that data and creating reports, and largely kind of what you were doing for brokerages as well, and kind of what you're having to do as well. So I'm wondering, when we look at what is happening in the AI world and creating actual standardized data fields for those back-end operational systems, where are you seeing that productivity for brokerage and the output that is currently happening by a human could be done quicker, faster, easier, smarter?
I'll take a first go at this, and this is really just about measuring performance and effectiveness of the tools that you're putting in place, right? And so if we are continuously having to build these fragile systems to exchange data or have manual inputs across it, you can't actually tie the whole story, have a clear line of sight, and to say, like, I introduced this tool, we've gotten these outcomes, and here's the actual ROI on that technology piece, right?
Derek?
So the end product would be great to get to, but we have so much work to do before we get there. So I'll kind of put the caveat there first. The RESO common format does a really good job of kind of fixing the plumbing, but it doesn't really give us a shared vocabulary and IDs that we can use. We have problems with identity. We need much more stable, common identities for agents, teams, organizations, property, parcel, IDs everywhere. We need that to be fixed for this to actually work across systems. We need the semantics, the common kind of transaction milestones that we go through to be common for everyone to understand exactly where we're at in those specific fields. And we've started that, but we don't have all of it. We have post-listed, but not pre-listed. accounting itself, like there's not a standardized chart of accounts for a real estate brokerage. And there's a lot that overlaps. Like we can't have one that works for everybody, but we can have one that works for almost everybody, and then they can have one that's a little bit different. And then kind of alignment on those fields and enums, they differ by provider and by market, and we need to make sure that those are set. If we can accomplish all that, the efficiencies gained by the broker and the experience the consumer will get will be vastly different than what we have today.
So one of the things when we were initially starting this conversation was that you start standardizing fields for, CRM systems, accounting software, and whether that would drive some fear on the vendor level of brokerages being able to move vendors faster, quicker, easier. What are you seeing kind of from your perspective of what might drive that fear, or what might be better for brokerages if they do have that transferability and,
I mean, I think it makes them have to level up.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, there's a technical lock-in right now because it's just so expensive to move. But if you make that friction, if you reduce that friction, then the vendors have to level up and produce a better product because now I have choice.
Right.
And so I think it's a win-win for everybody.
Every misaligned field is an adoption tax, if you look at it that way. So we're sitting at technology being used by brokers that are sub 20% adoption. And if we hit 25, we're celebrating, we're happy. That's not acceptable anymore. And the idea of the technology that we adopt tomorrow will have a measurable ROI for the brokerage. If you are in the buying process of broker right now, you're having really deep conversations with the new vendor on exactly what you will do for us, how it will work, and what kind of a partner you'll be in our business. I don't think we're buying software anymore. I think we're partnering with companies that help us be more successful. So, as you said, the lock-in that exists today is artificial, and it's going away faster than the vendors can move. And so I think they all recognize that. And for them to be able to be part of the conversation, to be a better partner to the industry, they're excited about adopting these. And I can say, as I've talked to the vendor clients that we have, they're very excited about pouring into this. They believe that their lock-in, their value should be driven based upon ROI and the value they bring back to their clients. And it's time that we're actually see that in real, it's excited it's going to happen.
So, I think about, the standardization of those fields across like CRM and accounting especially, right? For agent productivity, when, brokerages are working with recruitment tools, right? And you see those kind of things happening in the dashboard. But I wonder kind of on your experience, what you're seeing in terms of what actual things do you want to see, or does the brokerage leadership want to see from the analytics side, and what fields are the most important?
I mean, let's just start, right? I mean, because that's where we're at right now is that I think all these tools I've seen have been configured to just get the job accomplished, just to make operations happen. I mean, we're working with a bunch of professionals that are out there to sell real estate and build a brand. Yeah. And they're not accountants, they're not, this isn't their bread and butter, so we should be reducing the cognitive load that they have on themselves to be able to run all these systems and to be able to do some of the operational things that don't actually build to the top line for them. And so if we make that a lot more standardized, interoperable, give them choice, reduce the amount of work that they have to do this, then we'll start gathering a lot more analytics and data that we can use to actually optimize and grow that business with them.
Sorry, I'm going to follow up on a quick question on Max. So you've done a lot of work on that end. What are the agents able to do in terms of the utilization of Max?
What I can talk about is that they are, we're currently piloting a program. It's actually company-wide now for referrals, internal referral networks. And so this isn't private listing networks or anything like this. It is that agent-to-agent communication internationally through the entire RE/MAX brand. And Max is behind the scenes helping that happen.
Making that happen.
Yeah.
So Joe, you brought up the interoperability term, which we've talked more about the standardization and how vendors come in and out, but talk a little bit about how maybe tools could work better together or talk better together as far as what that means for the brokerage as far as analytics or ease of use or even why vendors shouldn't be afraid of interoperability.
Well, I think to answer that last part first, they shouldn't be afraid because the we versus me approach benefits everybody in the ecosystem. And so if you're able to pair your accounting data along with your MLS information, along with your marketing campaigns and CRM type info, you're able to build models on performance that in each one of those silos, you don't have enough information to back, right? And so that's where the vendor should be excited about playing and actually contributing more into that kind of equation, because that's what we're looking at now is really, for some of the 12.4 tools, it's many more at RE/MAX, but that we offer the network to utilize and run their businesses. How can we coach them to using, let's be honest, that complexity to its best outcomes.
One of the things that's, and I'm going to bring up the AI term again, but eventually we'll stop saying AI, which, for the longest time back in the dot-com era, we said e-commerce, and now it's just commerce. So it's going to be the same soon with AI. But one of the things AI is driving is basically adoption of these products. The agents necessarily will not have to do the work to have the product be adopted. So then all of the information that's in there is now relatively accurate. And that'll be the first time in a long time that the information in your CRM is relatively accurate. So you'll actually be able to get information from that in a meaningful way, but you can't unless you can access the information from all of your different disparate systems. So now they have to be integrated. The idea that we talk about AI as something that's coming is over. It's here. It's part of your business going forward, and everything you think about, you should be planning for what is the effect of my data on my AI system, because AI is fed by data. It runs on data. Without it, it's completely useless, and without it, brokers lose their competitive moat. The only thing that differentiates one broker from another is their data. I think even the systems and tools that they use to adopt, the data that feeds those makes them different. So the vendors themselves have to be part of that process to help the agents and brokers leverage that unique data set that they have that comes from their unique neighborhoods and the people that they serve and all the things that they've wanted to do for the longest time that they can finally do. One of the things that it will give agents is more time. One of the things that agents don't need, I'm sorry to say this, is more time. But what they do need is they need to be able to identify opportunities that they didn't see before and serve their clients in a much more meaningful way. And that's what all of this will do. And I think the vendors see that now, and they're able to create a product that better serves their clients, the brokers that purchase the product, and the agents that use it, and eventually the consumers that are the result of all that. And I think the idea, if we have the consumer as the end thought in all of this, the entire industry will be improved.
Yeah, I think that there is a need, at least for agents, to be able to kind of just talk to an application that's going to tell them everything, that's going to do the contract for them, that's going to save them time that way. They're communicating with their clients like that. And I think one of the things that's really interesting, at least that I've seen, is there are a lot of vendors in this space right now that are like, we are adding AI to our particular product. But all of that is sitting in its separate silo. None of those things are kind of communicating with each other. So is that super helpful if vendor partners are creating AI solutions for their brokerages, but there's not interoperability, right? So.
I do see that, and back to the kind of the referral example, but the way we think about it is kind of like a Pareto, right? It's like it's going to do 80% of the things for you, and then allows you to, and we expect the end user, whether that be an agent, somebody in the brokerage, or even a consumer, fine tune that 20%, because that's where we want to make sure that we have accuracy within that, and that's really the focus point, like to keep them into that flow and not expect AI is just going to take care of all this for you. Your mileage may vary, right? Sometimes it's going to shit the bed. So we want to avoid that as much as possible. We still give the important task back to that end user.
Yeah, I think you're right. The AI that's being developed now is just a bunch of different point solutions that solve specific problems or solve problems that sometimes the developer wanted to solve that the broker doesn't necessarily need solved. So you're going to have a lot of failed products in the market right now. But in the long run, if we can create a situation where those point solutions can be absorbed into a greater, bigger platform with a UX that is a natural language UX, which I think we're all headed towards, then you have that it's going to require the data that underlies those systems to all speak the same language. And it may be that the agent never really knows what tool is being called by the service, right? It just works. That's what we want. We want it to say it just works. They don't know how it works. They don't know why it works. But the infrastructure that we create as an industry to make that happen, that's where the magic is, and that's what we have to accomplish somehow ourselves.
And look, I mean, we don't want to replace all the interfaces, right? Like on day one, we want to be complementary to, right? Like we understand that it's going to be, you're still going to have drop downs, you're still going to have text boxes that are, very well formatted, but in addition to, these assistants can actually help navigate a much broader landscape of applications.
Yeah, I mean, what you're really talking about is the driving of adoption, right? Where an agent is not having to learn where to click and what to do, but they can actually communicate with the product, and it's going to give them the output that they need, which eventually will drive up brokerage productivity.
100%.
Yeah, we want to give them an assistant, not another job to do.
Right.
Yeah. And I think too that there's always this underlying part of it that to the point about failed products, right? Maybe the product didn't have the opportunity to do what it could do. And I think that there's always this disconnect between hey, this is what we have versus knowing how to tease out where agents and brokers use that. Like, how can vendors be better with the brokerage community to help their product succeed?
Absolutely, and like one great technique we employ is next best action. We didn't invent that, but with these tools and these automations now, we're able to put up right in front based on the modeling of behavior and how we're trying to drive adoption of certain functionality pieces through that type of mechanism.
Yeah, so some of this conversation we are having at Broker Advisory Workgroup. And I think that what we want to do is create a smaller work group that is really focusing on what those fields are on the brokerage level, and where some of that can be streamlined. So it really is kind of going to be a little think tank. So if that's something that you are interested in, Derek, myself, Joe, and Jeff are going to be in the room here somewhere. Come see us, give us your business card. We want to have that conversation. I think if you are in the brokerage space or if you're on the vendor side serving a broker, this could be a really great conversation to kind of help us streamline some of the actual fields that could be a possibility to kind of move forward with. And so I want to thank Derek and Joe for joining us this morning, and Derek for kind of driving the initial conversation for the brokerage community. I know you're hearing a lot of that from the people that you're serving, but I know we have just a little under a minute, but if you were to picture future of best in class brokerage data, what would that look like for you guys?
I'll let you go first as I give that one a thought.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I think best-in-class broker data just means that it's clean, it's structured, and it's accessible. Those three things, I think, if we could just get those three things accomplished in the next year, then we're getting closer. But the challenge we have is there's a clock that we're facing. We are racing against technology and against other people and organizations that want to take advantage of this unique situation and our potential lack of ability to adjust to it. So we've got to act fast to make this happen.
And just in the last couple seconds, I'll add governance and trust on that data so that we have credibility in it and we know we can use it for the highest use possible.
Fantastic. Let's give Derek and Joe a big round of applause. We very much appreciate your time this morning.